WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. It's Tuesday, each and every Tuesday. The show airs at 2:30, WCLN Radio, Star Communications Channel 16. We want to bring you a show today of something that interests you, something that you know about, and each and every week we ask that question on We Should Know. What should we know? This week we need to know more about agriculture. I'm going to open today with the fact that agriculture, in a recent report, 772,000 plus jobs, 92.7 billion with a big B industry in North Carolina. Employment percentage over 17% of the employment. We have two people with us today that know a little bit about that. Janna Bass, she's the Senior Vice President of Marketing Financial Services Manager with an organization called Cape Fear Farm, underlined twice, credit. And we also have with us Evan Kleinhans. If I said that wrong, then he's going to repeat it, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm putting it out there as the Chief Executive Officer, and you've been there since 2019. Is that correct?
Yeah, in my role as CEO, I've been there since 2019, but before that I was a Chief Financial Officer, and I've been with Farm Credit since 2011. Live right here just down the road in Stedman, North Carolina, and a proud resident here of North Carolina.
Yeah, and so we would be comfortable if we called you a country boy. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think that's safe to
that
say.
Sounds good. And Janna, of course, everybody kind of remembers you from a couple of other positions that are very important positions, and one of them is Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. So probably folks are going, I've seen her somewhere.
I remember her.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were coming on air, but actually before we flipped the cameras on, we were talking about that you came to us from a town called Apex, which is a suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina.
I did. So I've been in Sampson County about 10 years. And so growing up, I just didn't have a lot of agriculture opportunities. So coming to Sampson County, I've really learned a lot. And I'm excited to share that with others and see where it goes.
Absolutely. And you've been now with Cape Fear Farm Credit for 4 years.
About 4 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So another growing example of once a person gets on the farm, they love it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Listen, we want to talk today about farm credit and it really the role it plays. And I think probably, Janna, I know you can speak to it because you live it. Mm-hmm. And I know you can, Evan, in the position that you're in because you oversee a lot of financial assets and assistance that's given out to your members. Let's talk about the farm credit business and how that's working now. We see interest rates at unbelievable lows. We see I guess the stock market is always been amazing to me. But now when I look at numbers, I'm seeing interest rates anywhere from 2 to 3.5% and all that kind of thing. What do we need to know about that? I mean, folks that are listening today and they're thinking, well, I need to upscale my operation. I've got 2 or 3 hog houses, or I got 10 chicken houses, and I've got to borrow money because guess what? Something called an integrator says I need to upgrade. Is that something you guys get into? And just kind of give us a little background on what you actually do.
Okay, well, we are a mission-based organization, and we serve rural communities, and we provide them with a reliable and stable source of credit. Mm-hmm. You talked about interest rates. Certainly, interest rates are at historical lows, but what we do is we exist to provide that liquidity to underserved markets, mm-hmm. Agriculture and rural communities being one of them. And so we have a very specific purpose, focusing on ag, focusing on rural communities to be able to provide them with loans and financial products and services to help their businesses grow and to help them achieve their dreams. And so that's ultimately why we exist. We're part of the broader farm credit system who covers all 50 states across the United States. Cape Fear Farm Credit serves 12 counties right here in southeastern North Carolina, and we're proud to provide a stable source of capital to our local agricultural producers and rural residents right here in North Carolina.
The emphasis, Janna, being farms, that interests me in the sense that if you're a member, I also hear in the background that word member owner. Mm-hmm. And is that kind of what I'm supposed to be here?
Yeah, so I was going to mention, we'll talk about it later, I'm sure, and dive into it deeper, but we are a cooperative. And so there are many cooperatives throughout the state, and Star Telephone, Star Communications is one of them. But as a cooperative, we're local. And so we're governed, our board of directors is elected by the membership, and we're governed locally. So that's an important aspect of who we are, because we really have that heart to serve our communities. A cooperative, we're just really rich in service, and we're dedicated to serving the communities not only that we work in, but where we live.
You're somewhat of the heartbeat of the ag community. You allow that thing to function and make sure everything else works well. So we just went through something. We're supposed to be coming out of it called a global pandemic. How did that impact you? If you reflect back now, a year ago from where we sit today, May, June of 2020, what did you see happening, and what was going through the financial minds that you guys have? What were you thinking about? And what were you thinking about was about to happen with the agricultural community?
So, we're a purpose-based organization like we talked about, and that purpose is serving agriculture to enrich the lives of others. And during challenges like the pandemic, that purpose really comes into focus because agricultural producers, rural residents, they were really struggling. Supply chains broke down. Much uncertainty existed in the communities. We had to relook at and retool how we do our business in a socially distant and safe ways. But at the same time, people had to eat. We all had to roll up our sleeves and find a way to get it done. And one thing that we learned from this is that our agricultural producers, they never missed a beat. They got up every morning, they put their boots on, and they went to work no matter what happened in the pandemic. And we tried to reflect that same resiliency, figuring out ways that we could lean into that challenge, finding new ways to be able to deliver our products and services, using technology to be able to do that. And honestly, looking back at it, it's been a catalyst for our business to grow. We're proud of what we've been able to do. We stayed open throughout the entire pandemic, and we have been able to service all of our borrowers' requests. And so it has been certainly a challenging time, but also a time of opportunity to learn and to grow.
Janna, as kind of the marketing person for the organization, what was your biggest challenge to make sure you were communicating that message that you wanted to communicate, some of what Evan was talking about? What was the biggest challenge you had?
Yep. So a lot of what we do is relationship based. When our customers celebrate, we celebrate with them. But when they are concerned or they're worried about things that are coming up, we're worried with them. And so throughout the year, we offer a variety of value added opportunities, from educational opportunities face-to-face, or just additional tools and resources that can help them succeed. And so we really pivoted our value add opportunity structure to pivot to more webinars. We had Dr. Cole on to talk about economic trends and kind of what's going to be happening with COVID. And so we tried to invest resources and time into continuing to provide the value added piece, but we pivoted the direction, to make it a little more relevant to what everybody was going through at the time.
JW, one other thing to add is, there was challenging times for agricultural producers, where they marketed their products got disrupted, supply chains, as I touched on earlier. They really were some challenging times, but the reason that we exist and have existed for over 100 years is to be able to provide that stable source of capital and not to back away from the industry when they need us most, but to leverage that relationship, to be here in the community, to sit down with them, even if that's virtually, to figure out what they need to bridge the gap to get to the other side. And that's exactly what we did. We grew our business throughout the pandemic, and we helped provide that important source of capital to many kinds of producers, small and large, so that they could withstand some of the challenges that the pandemic created for them and their operations. And they were significant and severe in many cases. And we're proud to be able to have an opportunity to be able to earn their business and to be able to serve them through this process.
Did you find it challenging to the point that you had to kind of redesign what stability meant in that particular market over the past 12 months? Did things change radically enough that you had to say it's okay if we move a little bit out of our normal boundaries to accomplish things?
Well, in some cases, yes, our operations adapted, but also, from a credit standpoint, the way that we underwrite and do our business, we've stayed very consistent. That's part of our model. Mm-hmm. Agriculture is a very cyclical business, and we have a very consistent approach to be able to weather those storms. And that's what allows us to be able to be in business for well over 100 years. And so from a credit standpoint, we didn't fundamentally change how we underwrite loans. Now, operationally, we've had to leverage technology, find new ways to be able to deliver our products and services to them in a way that was safe in the pandemic. And so we did do new things with technology. We revamped our operations. How we delivered those products and services absolutely did evolve.
And Janna, I know you saw when you were with the chamber, you saw the different kinds of things, ag businesses that's out there, agritourism. When I was growing up on the farm many years ago, I didn't really imagine I would ever hear anybody wanting to visit a farm just to look at it. But that's becoming a big small business.
It is.
Does that make sense? A big small business, but it is really a big thing now. Did you think that was something that you would see evolving to where it is?
I don't know that I would have predicted it, but I'm very excited that it's here. I think it gives a lot of opportunity to continue to tell that story of agriculture and really just get individuals that don't have a farm at home, right out their backyard, to bring them to the farm and show them what it's like and what it produces. So no, I don't think I would have predicted it, but I'm glad it's here, and I hope it's here to stay and continues to grow.
And the reason I brought that up, I read an article and kind of prepping for this. This guy in the western part of the state took his family farm that was a dairy farm, and it was not profitable, not functioning. It ended up, to kind of sum it up, they were doing weddings on the farm and that kind of thing, and he turned it into this whole other business that didn't look exactly like what it was. And I was kind of, it just caught my eye, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So that gets back to kind of where I'd like to maybe get into when we come back from break, where you guys may be going, things that have changed, how that model that it's been somewhat stoic is willing to, ebb and flow when necessary. So we'd be thinking about that, and I'll kind of use that as a teaser as we go to break. So ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking about ag and ag business. We're talking about funds that are needed by large operations in agriculture, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. Pleased to be with you today. We're talking with the folks from Cape Fear Farm Credit, and the CEO is with us, and the Chief Executive Officer and President is Evan Kleinhans. I want to kind of say that with a little bit of draw on the end. Am I saying it kind of in a southern angle? Is it good?
Absolutely. I got a country draw too. It's no problem. And of course, rolls off the tongue.
And of course, Janna Bass. Janna, I just marvel at the fact that you came here and ended up on a farm and love it and enjoy the farm life and ag. And she's just kind of a role model for all of us, I think, that farming is good for everybody. We not only grow good stuff, but, we got good people making it happen. So I want to talk about that with the farm credit business. Let's talk about some of the diverse things that you guys actually, and I want to use the word support, but in reality, you fund. You make it possible for folks to grow those blueberries or blackberries, and particularly in the southern part of the county, or strawberries, or hogs, or chickens, or turkeys. Well, give us a little rundown of the sense of that. And Janna, I'll let you touch on the importance of ag for our economy, especially as an economic development driver.
Well, we exist to serve all of agriculture. So we are experts in a lot of different varieties of agricultural commodities, agribusinesses. And so we are equipped to serve a very, very diverse agricultural industry and rural economy here in southeastern North Carolina. Sampson County is certainly an ag leader and one of the most diverse counties related to agriculture here in the state. And so we have experts on our team and that we lean into and help these family-owned operations and agribusinesses grow in all types of different commodities and agricultural products and services.
One of the things that strikes me, Evan, is that I read that the two top exported crops is sweet potatoes and tobacco. The tobacco kind of surprised me a little bit. Sweet potatoes, not so much. But that's pretty dynamic when you think about the number of counties in this state that grow both of those products.
Absolutely. You know, we are in a very rich agricultural area here in southeastern North Carolina. North Carolina agricultural producers are leaders in the nation and in the world. And so products grown right here in southeastern North Carolina help feed, clothe, and fuel not only the United States or here locally, but also abroad. There's a massive export market for all types of different things. The livestock industry, chicken, hogs, sweet potatoes you touched on. So there's a very, very vibrant business here, and many large businesses, market leaders in these spaces are headquartered right here in southeastern North Carolina, and they have just a tremendous impact on the communities that we live and work in. It's a privilege to serve them. Everything from the really multi-million and billion-dollar businesses down to the small family and hobby farmers. We serve all of those.
Janna, when you're marketing this, it's got to be a challenge to get people to understand that they are not only going to receive financial resources to accomplish their goal, but a lot of what I've heard that you guys and read that you guys do, you actually plow that back into the community. And talk to us how you market that and how what you really want folks to know.
We do. So if I would look at Cape Fear Farm Credit and say, okay, I want people to leave knowing that we are a relationship-based lender. Right, we are your lender for your agriculture operation or your rural lifestyle. If you live in a rural area, we want a relationship with you as your lender. But I would also want them to know and understand the message of that cooperative. You know, we're here to serve. We want to serve the community. I always think it's interesting, you know, and special too, that our customers, farmers in the communities, they're also the T-ball coach, you know, or they're the volunteer fighter. I mean, they live and serve in our communities too. You know, they don't just work here to provide food, but they serve everybody in the community by coaching that T-ball game or being a volunteer firefighter. It's just, you know, a few examples. So I'd want them to understand that we are cooperative and that we're here to serve. But a part of that cooperative is patronage. And that's a big part of what we do. And a patronage is a cash dividend that we give back to our customer owners. And Evan can speak to a little bit more on the, you know, how that's determined by our board. But it's an important message that we like to share that really sets us apart. That not only do we serve our communities and finance, you know, our communities, but we give back. And not only in a volunteer way, but in a financial way as well.
So we're locally owned, we're locally governed, and what's really unique about a cooperative, and you know, there's a lot of cooperatives across North Carolina. We're privileged to be organized as such, but that means our customer and our owner are aligned, and they're the same. And so when our success fuels your success and vice versa. And so patronage means when we have a profit at the end of the year, we make a decision and turn that back in the form of a cash patronage dividend back to our customers based on the amount of business or interest that you have with our organization. And that's a really important aspect of who we are. It ultimately lowers that cost to borrow from us, which helps us to provide a unique competitive advantage. And so not only do we offer a really competitive interest rate on the front end, as we're profitable, we're able to lower that interest rate through the return of cash patronage. And what's important is that we're locally owned, and that cash patronage, we've got studies that show that there's a 7x multiplier on that money. And so as we return that patronage back into these local communities that we live and work in, it gets spent 7 times. And so for every dollar, for last year, we did $25.5 million last year alone. We think that has, a 7x impact on the local communities. We've got a proud history of paying patronage. Since 1988, we've paid well over $300 million to the local communities here. And so it's an important aspect to the local economies. Agriculture certainly is, and it helps make these communities very vibrant and attractive places to live and work and serve.
How has ag changed over the past, say, 2 decades when you look at it just in the time that you've been involved in the business, Evan? You've seen a significant change. One of those changes that certainly I've seen and anybody associated with ag has seen is the word integrator. Mm-hmm. And integrator has changed not only the way we borrow money, but oftentimes whether we even have access to the money or not. One article I read said really the best thing to do before you go to the lending agency is find out which integrator you're going to be with. Mm-hmm. Understand what that is. Help our audience understand what an integrator is, why it's important, and how it's kind of changed the dynamic of ag.
Sure. So, over time to start, over the last 20 years, we've seen a consolidation in the business, which means, these family farms have continued to grow. And what an integrator does is they integrate throughout the value chain. And so what that allows them to do is to be able to stabilize a lot of the market risk for contract growers. So there's not just an independent market for, and we see it a lot in the livestock industry, production of hogs and chickens. And so what that integrator does, they own the livestock, they own the genetics, they help provide service and support, and then they deliver a contract to many growers around and help, in essence, run that business. And so it basically is a vertically integrated business that's an important part of how a lot of commodities are produced right here in southeastern North Carolina. And we certainly serve, the large integrators as well as the contract growers. And so it's just a part of the growth and evolution that we've seen in the industry. It's been a very successful model, and it helps provide a very stable income source for local producers here. And it helps to centralize some of that market risk that exists. Agriculture and commodity production is extremely volatile industry. It's a cyclical industry, and so that model really helps to provide that stable source of income to the contract grower. And so that's a little bit of an overview about how that is handled. And so Jen, I don't know if you want to touch a little bit on maybe some of the marketing and how that's done.
Yeah, and so especially with an integrator, it helps younger farmers or get into it. Mm-hmm. I can speak personally. I married into a farm family, and we started with chickens. And having that integrator relationship was vital to being able to go to a lender and say, hey, we want to build chicken houses, and just having that integrator contract and that security, and really that they would help us as we got started from the integrator side, but then also from a finance side as well.
Yeah.
And that helps you check the box, so to speak, of making sure that everything falls into proper alignment to meet not only the standards, but the kind of the assurance, if there is such a thing now in finance, that everything is going to evolve because you've got a roadmap already laid out.
Well, it's certainly, if we look at that contract, it helps us as a lender to be able to lean into that industry. There's a stability that we can rely on that contract from that integrator to help that contract grower get into business. And so certainly the horsepower of those organizations absolutely helps us from a credit underwriting standpoint to be able to serve a broad base. And that's how, there's been some pioneers. I mean, this integrated livestock model really was, in many cases, pioneered right here in southeastern North Carolina. And so, it's been a really important aspect about how that has evolved here. And you've seen it grow, really across the country. And so it's an exciting evolution and certainly has been a very successful model, over time.
Is that something that you see that needs to be pushed forward more in marketing to get folks to understand what that model is? how it works, and I guess how they can kind of benefit from understanding that model. And I'm posing that question so when we come back from break, I'm not going to cut it off on you right now, but I think that's important for folks to understand how critical that is for them to have that asset behind them with those chicken houses or with those hog houses, having that organization there, that skilled person that says, if you do this, this, and this outcome is pretty much assured. So let's talk about that when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us. We're coming up kind of halfway the show here. I hope you call a friend, a neighbor, talking about farm stuff, things you need to know. We'll be back in a moment.
At home or away, knowing who is at your door is priceless. Star Communications is here to help with its doorbell security camera by Skybell. Live viewing and two-way audio equips you with the ability to always see and greet anyone that shows up at your door. If this is the kind of confidence you are looking for, call Star Communications today at 1-800-706-6538 to learn more about this intelligent security that you can always depend on.
Welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. We are talking with the executive officer and the president of the bank called Cape Fear Farm Credit. And Evan Kleinhans is that guy. And we're talking with Janna Bass, who's heading up the marketing section for 4 years. And we're talking about the concept and importance of money and assets to farm families. And just so folks will know, nothing is off limits here when it comes to helping a farmer out to make that farm produce, no matter whether it's peanuts, whether he's growing corn for popcorn, or whatever it may be. That's what you guys are about.
Absolutely.
So that's a pretty lofty statement. So I want to kind of drill in from there. And there's a lot of important things that you do, and one of those is to process quality loans to people in a way that money can be used for asset value to the farm and a benefit to the community. So it's a big area. Which piece of that do you want to bite off to start with?
Well, as you touched, we exist to serve agriculture and rural communities, and having prudent underwriting standards, as you talked about, is certainly something important. As we're owned by our member borrowers, it's important that we have a fiscally responsible way that we deliver our credits so that we can continue to exist. We've been in business for well over 100 years, and we position ourselves to be in business for the next 100 years. And that means we need to make credit, worthy loans, but also the way that we structure our balance sheet, it allows us to be able to serve all types of different commodities, to be able to lend money in rural communities. So whether you want to start a farm, whether you want to buy a house in the country, whether you want to buy a recreational property to hunt on, or whether you want to get involved in production agriculture, you have an agribusiness, we've got a product or a solution for you. And that's exactly what we do. And I look forward to talking more about that.
Do you specialize? Do you have a specialty area for young farmers? Is that one of the areas that you look at and say, hey, we really need to help these folks get into business?
We do. So we are very passionate about serving that young, beginning, and small market. And that's including veterans and minorities that fit that young, beginning, and small bill. But we truly believe that we need to support that young, beginning, and small market because they will be the next generation of agriculture, or they will continue to support and feed, fuel, and clothe the world, as they grow. And so I always like the analogy of a plant, right? You have to cultivate it and you have to nurture it because it will continue to grow. And we take that seriously at Cape Fear Farm Credit by providing products and services specifically for those individuals.
And that small farm could be as simple as having pasture land for cattle.
Absolutely.
Because oftentimes we don't realize how many beef cows are grown in this area. I mean, the counties you serve, that's a huge market. Mm-hmm. And looking at that, one of the things I'm often asked when I have folks on that know stuff about agriculture, they often say, wonder why we don't have a processing facility somewhere that somebody would invest in with money to process a lot of beef. You know, these are things that oftentimes become very important when it comes to deciding, well, is that what I want to do? Mm-hmm. There's more moving parts.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one thing that we work with young, beginning, and small farmers on. We hold conferences for them, you know, Emerging Entrepreneurs Conference. We have an Ag Biz Conference. But marketing your product is essential. When you sit down with your loan officer or a small business coach, you know, or mentor, you've got to look at the big picture. You know, if you want to have some cattle, what are you going to do with the cattle? How are you going to market that cattle? And where's the cash flow? And so that's, often we pair young, beginning, and small farmers with mentors, which are loan officers at Farm Credit. And that's what they're there for, you know, to walk through the process with them, walk through the challenges, because as we've talked about, agriculture is up and down because of weather and all the other challenges that come with it. And so it's important to know how to market your product, but really to think through that business plan as a whole.
You know, we have a great team of trusted advisors, JW, that are here to support all kinds of industries, and you know it's something that we work hard to be able to serve, and it's fundamentally why we exist.
That existence and the codependent relationship is a critical part of the survival of Cape Fear Farm Credit. I mean, it's just kind of simple, but it's very clear. If they don't get what they need to be able to produce what they need to produce, you guys don't get to loan them the money they need to make that happen. So there's a codependency going on here.
No, absolutely. And, you know, we talked about in the last segment about how, you know, ag producers are, you know, continuing to grow over time, but they're still family owned and operated. We have the privilege of working with them right here in southeastern North Carolina. And so, you know, that's absolutely part of, that's critical for folks to understand, is that these are family owned and operated businesses, large and small. Mm-hmm. And that relationship that we build, serving as that trusted advisor to help them grow their business is really important, not only for our business, but also for the communities that we live and serve in. We talked about that codependency, is that our success is built on the success of our producers by us providing that stable source of capital and advice and products and services that helps you grow, that also helps us grow. And so ultimately, as we grow together, a rising tide floats all boats, so to speak. And so it really helps the communities here in southeastern North Carolina. And I can't emphasize how important agriculture is to North Carolina, to the life that we enjoy here. It helps in all many facets of what we are, from tax revenue, employment. We've touched on that some in our conversation, but agriculture is the largest industry in the state, and it really is a very important aspect to lifestyle here in North Carolina. It's a privilege to be able to serve that industry.
When we use the term family farm, and I'm going to kind of look at you with this, Janna, because you represent that. You are that family farm. What's the biggest challenge that you look at today and this is maybe not a question specifically for Cape Fear Farm Credit, but as a farm family owner, what does that challenge look like today that maybe people that are not in that seat would never see? Mm-hmm. What's some of the challenges?
Many of them you can't control. So weather, of course, I mean, that's something that you always hear from individuals in the agriculture industry. They're looking at the weather, you know, too much rain or too little rain, or the wind. I mean, anything can affect the plants, just depending on what stage they're in. So often our farmers are able to partner with lending institutions and have that relationship there. And so the lending institutions are willing to work with family farms and make sure that we can get through it together.
I ask that question sometimes to farmers, and it's interesting response. I had one farmer to tell me, as you said, weather. It's this challenge of making sure the food chain is in place. And I posed a question to I said, well, what about exports? And I thought the response was right on point. You know, people, I'm on a farm, I live on a farm, but they'll tell you what they think. And he just simply looked at me and he said, I don't have time to think about that. I'm working too hard. Mm-hmm. So my next question is this: is employment an issue for farms and farmers today? We see it on the news right now. We got jobs, but nobody, is available to work. Is that an issue?
Absolutely, it's an issue. It's one of the issues that, as I'm out talking with producers here in North Carolina and really across the country, that labor and a shortage of skilled labor is really a challenge, and it's really shaping the industry. These producers have to evolve, and if they can't get the labor that they need, whether that is local labor or migrant labor, whatever that may be, they have to evolve their businesses to survive. Mm-hmm. And so that does drive the way that they shift their production methods. They may leverage technology, mechanization, and but absolutely labor is a major challenge in the agricultural industry, and it's going to be a critical aspect of how the industry evolves over time, as if we're able to solve some of those challenges. But JW, you're spot on.
And Janna, I think along that line too, technology has helped significantly with the labor market. I mean, the way things are processed and done. But at the end of the day, somebody reminded me a while back, at the end of the day, somebody's got to get their fingernails dirty.
That's right.
Somebody's got to put, knees and elbows in it. And that's the critical piece I keep hearing over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, labor and workforce and making sure you have the people there, I mean, it is essential for farming operations. One thing that I have seen over the last, couple years is because a lot of the farmers are in that same challenge, they have started to share labor and when they're slow on this side, then they might help a farmer out too. And that's another reason why I'm proud of the agriculture industry, just because they have that network, together, and they're so willing to help their neighbor.
I couldn't agree more. It is humbling and amazing to see the resiliency of agricultural producers. I've never seen it in any other industry. They're extremely resilient. They're willing to roll their sleeves up, like you said, and get their hands dirty. But they're also extremely smart in the way that they can find new and innovative ways to be able to operate their business. And so there's a very bright future. Agriculture has always had different challenges, and it continues to evolve over time. But there's a very bright future for agriculture here in North Carolina. If you just look at what's going on at the state level, in the university, colleges, community colleges, there's all sorts of bright spots too. And so even though that there's labor challenges and trade challenges and all kinds of economic things that are going, agricultural producers for thousands of years have found a way to evolve, and they will continue to do so. North Carolina is a bright spot for producers to live and work.
We're going to take another break. We're going to come back and talk about some of those things and talk about some of the products maybe that Cape Fear Farm Credit has and how folks can get engaged those products. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. Call a farm friend. Call a friend of anybody. We'll be back in a moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming up on our last segment, J.W. Simmons here. The name of the show is We Should Know. I want to thank you for being with us today. As we come up on this last segment, I want to remind you, you can reach us via email at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Your comments, suggestions for shows, comments on shows we've had is critically important. Hearing from you helps us steer where we need to go to get to where we need to be. So I look forward to continuing to listen to you, to review those comments, to respond back to you when requested. Also, for those folks that still like to do the snail mail route, we've got that for you. Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. And just put on there, we should know. We'll be glad to get that. If you're from around here, it's pronounced Clinton. If you're not, you can still call it Clinton, North Carolina, as long as you're in the business of letting us know what you need, and we're going to try to help you. Today, we're talking about agriculture, and the people that drive the agriculture is the people that have the money assets to push out to give farmers what they need to make it through that year. And that year now is decades, and many times, Evan, money is borrowed for more than one decade, because farming now is in sometimes millions of dollars. So Evan Kleinhans is here, and he's the president and chief executive officer for Cape Fear Farm Credit. And I want to make sure I put farm credit in it. And Janna Bass, marketing person there. Your title so long, I'm just going to say you're the chief of marketing. So that particular title strikes me as I come back. I want to mention that when we think about farms in North Carolina, we're looking at 46,000 farms that produce top commodities and crops. We've got farmland, 8.4 million acres. Farmland. That's a lot of farmland. When I talk to people like Steve Troxler, he always has a concern about solar farms going up everywhere and taking up the farmland. So, I mean, there's all kinds of issues that's happening all around it. So I want to kind of get into this conversation and talk a bit about things that really is so critical to you guys. And it sounds to me like a lot of it is a relationship with the farm. You're really there saying, here I am, and you're reaching out. Is that kind of sum up where we are?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're a relationship lender. And so we have that relationship with our customers because we don't want this to be a transaction. We want to have that relationship and to be their partner, their financial partner through their operation and their rural lifestyle too.
So Evan, when you think about partner, I'm thinking that if I borrow $1.2 million from you to build a few chicken houses or turkey houses, we're pretty much married up then, aren't we?
Well, it's a privilege to serve customers large and small across, and it is a partnership. And, we live and work in the communities here in southeastern North Carolina. We've got products and services to be able to cover all aspects of agriculture, small farms, large farms, all the way through agribusinesses. But also we have products for rural lifestyle. We touched on that. So if you want to buy a house and live here in the country, if you want to buy some land to enjoy with your family, we've got a product and a loan for you. And we live and work in these communities right here in southeastern North Carolina. It's a privilege to serve.
One of the things that I think COVID has shown us, according to some research, is that a lot of folks are now looking for exactly what you just described. They're looking for something larger than the urban or suburban area. They're looking for that, quote, 10-acre farm that they can buy or a piece of property and put a nice home on it. And people are telling me that you expect more of that going forward with the generation that's coming forward.
The secret's out. It's a great place to live in the country.
It is.
So people,
I think it is.
And so we've seen, the pandemic has really accelerated that, and we are seeing some generational shifts, but people want to spread their wings a little bit. They want to be able to have some land to be able to enjoy with their families. We're seeing a massive influx of people moving in from more urban areas here in the state, but really all across the country. North Carolina is an extremely desirable place to work and to live. And so we are seeing, an interesting phenomenon that's being, that is being accelerated by the pandemic, where people are moving to the country. I've heard it been called as urban flight or even a rural renaissance. And so that brings challenges and opportunities here. But the secret is absolutely out that, that living in some of these rural communities is a wonderful place to raise a family and to be able to live your life.
Farm credit also is a part of making that community what it is, because you guys give back in scholarships and you give back in supporting community programs that are right here in eastern North Carolina, for us, southeastern North Carolina.
We do. So we give about $20,000 a year in scholarships, ranging from 4-H scholarships, FFA scholarships, and then local scholarships by the counties that we serve. That's 12 counties that we serve. So we do scholarships annually. And it's just such a joy to read those applications, and you just see the investment of time, resources, and passion that the next generation has for agriculture. And then often we look at what do they want to do when they go to college, but then when they graduate. And it's also just very encouraging to see that a lot of people want to come back to a rural community to invest their newfound, knowledge and skill set and career back into the areas that we currently live and serve.
Go ahead.
Well, our organization has a heart of service as a cooperative, and something that's really important from our board of directors, who are our local owners and operators, is that we give back to the communities that we live and work in. They're extremely generous to give back. And so that's one of many different avenues we've given to community colleges and to North Carolina State University with their new plant sciences building, things that help promote agriculture, but also locally in the community. Janna was really instrumental in creating something that we did right in the height of the pandemic last year called the Produce Project. And I'll let her speak to that. Yeah. It's really something that she created and we're really proud of. But last year, in the middle of the pandemic, there was supply chain disruptions. So we had all of this beautiful, nutritious produce growing right here in southeastern North Carolina that had difficulty finding a shelf or a restaurant to buy it. And we also had local communities that didn't have access, people in need who did not have access to healthy and nutritious food. And Janna created a way to be able to connect the dots there and to serve. And so Janna, why don't you take it away and share some of the project you created?
Yeah, so he says that I created it, but it was a team effort. One thing I love about our team at Cape Fear is you call somebody and you say, hey, I have this idea. And they say, yeah, and then we could do this, and so it just blossoms. But what we did last year, and we're going to continue it this year, is called the Produce Project. And we purchase produce from local farmers right here in southeastern North Carolina, many of whom are our customers. So last year we purchased and partnered with about 35 local farmers, and we sourced, cucumbers to corn, watermelon, tomatoes, fresh produce all throughout. And then our employees, I say we, Cape Fear Farm Credit employees, we had about 80 plus employees that volunteered our time. Wow. And we got all the produce together, and we packed bags, and we packed enough bags to feed about 2,700 people right here in southeastern North Carolina. Wow. And then we worked with distribution partners to help identify the needs in the communities, and they helped us distribute them throughout. So it was a great project that our team was passionate about, but then also that we were just able to serve and to help right here. Not only our customers, the farmers help move their product, but then also help feed families. That's
a story that should be told over and over, and certainly, this show is uploaded to social media, so it'll get out there. I think that's the kind of thing that folks need to understand is you guys, from what I've read and in talking with you, you're in the game with the farmer. So once that farmer needs something and he engages you guys and you get on board, you're all in. I mean, it's all in together, one time, all the time.
It's absolutely more than just a transaction. Yep. It's a relationship. Yep. And so, yes, we've got a loan, but we've also got educational opportunities. We've got all types of ways to be able to serve and help those producers and rural residents grow. And it's a privilege to be able to live and work and serve in the communities. At the end of the day, that heart of service to make the world and to make our communities a better place is what it's all about. And so if we can just pay it forward and give it back, it continues to accelerate the communities that we're so proud to live and work in right here in North Carolina.
Absolutely. And, I'll mention that we look forward also to doing a show called On the Farm with Willie Jackson. It's going to be coming up pretty soon. And as soon as that hits the airwaves, I think we're going to get a lot of very positive feedback on that, simply because we're talking about some of the various things that we talk about today, except he's going to be in the middle of it. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to thank you for being here. But before we go, I want to give you about 30 seconds to wrap up. It goes fast, Evan, so I'll start with you, Janna, about 30 seconds.
Well, I appreciate you just allowing us to be here. And then I just encourage the listeners to make sure that they're talking to their farmer neighbors, make sure they're really listening to that story of agriculture, and then share it with others. Agriculture, not growing up in a rural area, I didn't have a lot of ag opportunities. And so just educate each other and talk about it, but also just thank a farmer as well.
Communication is the key. Evan, about 30 seconds.
All right. Well, one thing I would encourage our listeners is to be involved and engage in what's going on. Tell the stories of agriculture. It's important to connect with our consumers out there. Be engaged with what's going on with policy. There's a lot of things out there that impact the industry, and so ag advocacy is important. It's a privilege to be here with you today. If you're interested in more information about Cape Fear Farm Credit, you can go to our website at www.capefearfc.com, or you can find us on some of our social media channels. And so thank you so much for your time. It's a privilege to be here today.
We're going to be putting those numbers up on the screen for folks that's watching so they can pick that up, and certainly appreciate you coming out and having a conversation with us. And maybe sometime in the future, Janna, if you have something coming up that we need to get out there, especially if you're talking about feeding folks great produce from Eastern North Carolina, that's always a good story to tell. So
thank you.
Thanks for being with us. And as we close today, I want to remind folks to continue to reach out to us, continue to let us know what's going on. We will be bringing you more information about that show called On the Farm with Wellie Jackson. And we always like to look at you as we're leaving and give you just a short message and say to you, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.